Well, a very good afternoon to you all. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us on today's Lunch and Learn. I know it's been a highly requested topic, and we're really looking forward to exploring it further. For those who don't know me, I'm Anna from the Virtual IT department. I own the Virtual IT department alongside my husband, Liam. We get the pleasure of working in the space of both IT support, AI, and all that's happening at that frontier. And I'm really pleased to be joined today by Aidan from Pax8. Thank you, Aidan, for your time. He's here because he's a specialist on the Microsoft tool suite, especially when it comes to Copilot. And our goal today was to introduce you to some of the workflows that can be achieved with the tool, but also how it interacts with teams and some of those nuances that end users want, rather than the complexities of the technical layer behind the machinery, if you like. So without further ado, I will just say if you have any questions at any point, pop them in the question and answer chat. If it's appropriate, I'll interrupt Aidan and ask. If it's not, we'll wait till the end and we will hang around a little bit at the end to answer any questions you might have along the way. So without further ado, thank you, Aidan, for joining us, and over to you, sir.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Anna. Really a pleasure to be here and collaborating with the Virtual IT department once again. Yeah, so my name's Aidan. I'm the Microsoft Alliance Manager for Pax8 here in APAC, one of Virtual IT department's strategic partners when it comes to all things Microsoft. So no surprises from the questions that Anna and the team have been requesting. We're seeing it across the board, really, for everything to do with Copilot. We see a huge opportunity as far as the productivity that can be driven through a lot of these advancements, and it is changing day by day. But then also there are some considerations around some of the requirements, or some of the considerations from a security perspective, from an internal governance and document perspective as well. So we'll touch on a few of those. So I do have my agenda just up on the screen today. I know we've got a pretty tight 30 minutes for this session. I will be available to stick around for any questions if there are any. But as Anna mentioned, please do put any questions into the question and answer, because we find this experience with Copilot, it's really how you can make a tangible difference in your individual day, how you can take away one or two or three things to really start to test out the tool, to start getting those incremental productivity benefits. So that's really what I want everyone to get out of the session today, hopefully. So as far as the agenda, I first just want to set a bit of a baseline. There's probably been quite a few people who have had different experiences with other generative AI tools, probably ChatGPT and Google Gemini and a few other ones out there. So I just want to level set, where does Microsoft fit into the ecosystem of these advancements? Then let's start to get a little bit more hands-on. Let's try and make it as tangible as possible. Let's have a look at the world of prompting. How do you interact with these tools to start to get an output? And what are some recommendations there? And then hopefully the vast majority of the time, we can just focus on some really practical demos where I'll pretend that I'm a HR manager for a company I've just made up, creatively called Aidan's Copilot Company, and we'll go from there from a couple of the different app experiences to hopefully showcase what Copilot can do and the power of it. So if we think about how ChatGPT landed into the market, it's probably going on 2.5 years ago now. We saw about 100 million people adopt the product within the first 3 months, which is absolutely staggering if you look at the usage adoption of any other technology over the past 20 years. But when you're thinking about it, I think it's about 50% of all internet users are now using generative AI in one way or another. So effectively, it goes back to what these large language models are, which the reason that it has changed is the barrier to entry, or the barrier to adoption, is now so low by comparison to other technology inflection points, because what we can do to interact with these technologies is by using our natural language, the way we speak day to day. It then goes into a large language model, which interacts with the AI modeling itself. And then the large language model actually comes back to us with another natural language, or similarly approachable or applicable output there. So thinking about natural language, thinking videos, thinking photos, we can interact with it straight away. That doesn't require a huge technological change or user adoption program just to even get going. So that's where we're seeing a lot of the advancements. Where it becomes a little bit more unique within the Microsoft ecosystem is that Microsoft 365 Copilot is able to speak to your data where it most likely already resides. So if during the COVID period, we saw a huge amount of adoption of Microsoft 365, as particularly I'm down here in Melbourne as well, we're all pretty much working from home overnight, and we needed to be able to access our data remotely pretty much straight away. So that was a big push into Microsoft 365 versus traditional on-prem solutions or other SaaS products. So if we take that large language model to where your data is probably already residing within the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, and then if I think about the apps that I've been using for as long as I was either a student, going back a little bit of time now, either a student or in the professional workforce, chances are I've been using the Microsoft 365 apps one way or another. So thinking I've probably got 25 years under my belt of using Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and more recently Teams as well. So if we think about the incremental muscles that we've built in this ecosystem, where the data already resides, and then the immediate impact we can drive through large language models, that's where we see Microsoft 365 Copilot really differentiating itself from some of the competitors like ChatGPT or Google Gemini, because you need to go looking where that data is. It isn't already there, and the apps are a new thing that we need to adopt as well. So limiting that immediate impact we can drive. So Copilot and generative AI is already here. As I said, there's been a huge amount of adoption already. The vast majority of people are already using AI at work, and half of them have been starting to use it within the last 6 months as well. Where the considerations for this starts to come into regards is how you as business users, business owners, or corporations are considering your AI usage at work, because we're also seeing 78% of AI users are bringing their own AI tools to work themselves. So it means that if you as an organization aren't investing in your AI policy or your AI technologies, chances are your workers are doing that themselves, and chances are they're using the free version of ChatGPT, which doesn't guarantee data protection. So it does mean that your internal information will be going outside of your business service boundary, and then it can create some additional security issues. So from at least a baseline, I'd recommend having a policy to use Copilot, the free version that everyone has access to, as your standard business tool. Because what that does is that has commercial data protection, and it means the information you're putting into your prompts isn't leaving your service boundary and isn't going back to train the AI model, restricting that chance of there being a data leak. So that's very much baseline, a free thing you can do now and get started for your business on how to utilize generative AI through the free version of Copilot. So a few considerations here. I won't go too much into it today, maybe something we can set up for a future session. So do let Anna and the team know if that's something you'd like to talk about a bit more when it comes to compliance and security around Copilot. But it is going to show that this is a conversation you probably need to consider pretty immediately, as people are adopting these tools pretty rapidly. But if we think about how we can start getting the most out of our AI investment, this applies to the free version of Copilot, applies to ChatGPT, and then applies obviously to the Copilot for Microsoft 365 paid licenses we're talking about today. And it starts to go into how you can structure your prompts to get the best outcome or the best output from that first effort, rather than having to have a long, painstaking process communicating with your AI model in order to get the output that you want the first time. Some of the guidance that Microsoft has provided, because it is a bit of an art and a bit of a science at the same time, is really breaking it down into these 4 main prompt ingredients. So if we think about the goal of what we want to achieve through Copilot, how we want the output to look, the context of what needs to be involved within that prompt, the source, so limit down the data that Microsoft will be looking for in order to create that output, and then lastly, the expectations of how we want it to look and feel and read when it has been put out as well. So if we break it down, generate 3 to 5 bullet points, which is the output we want, to prepare for a specific meeting and a specific part of that meeting, focusing on emails and Teams chats since a specific date, and then making sure that language is simple within those dot points so we can get up to speed quickly. Really set some really good parameters to get the outcome that we want there. And what's the benefit? We've seen the results are starting to come in. So Microsoft has done a lot of research into the initial stages of Copilot rollouts, and the stats they're seeing are pretty awesome. So the vast majority, 70% of people who are utilizing Copilot said that they are feeling more productive. A great qualitative statistic, just showing that people who feel more productive, chances are they are more productive. They're enjoying their work a bit more. So great to see that that 70% figure is the majority of the users, although we do want to grow that over time, which I'm sure will come as people get more used to the technology. But if we start to get into the nitty-gritty, into the quantitative stats, which I do prefer, Microsoft has pitted a couple of different groups against each other, Copilot users versus non-Copilot users, to see how that performance does change as well. So for Copilot users, particularly within a Teams meeting session, we're able to see that within a 35-minute Teams meeting, Copilot users were able to summarize that meeting 4 times faster, to a higher degree or higher accuracy than those who weren't using Copilot. So a really immediate benefit for the productivity of that team. If we expand that usage out into tasks like searching for documents, writing documents, drafts, and summarizing them, they also found that Copilot group versus the non-Copilot group was 29% faster and producing work of at least an equal level of quality to its competitors there. So that's some great results for Copilot. And then our favorite department, sales, was on average able to save 90 minutes more each week to reinvest back in their day, which you can see would drive a higher revenue outcome for the business through them being a revenue generating part of the business too, which is a good outcome for the ROI of the licenses. So that's some great results that are coming in. I think that's the last of my slides. I did want to keep it pretty brief before getting through to the demo. So I'll stop sharing my screen for one moment and then go across and share my other window. So just be one moment there. Awesome. Well, I will reshare my screen Damo, if you could just confirm that I am sharing my my Teams calendar. Is that what you're seeing there?
That is correct, Teams calendar.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, just the scenario that I wanted to cover through today is, as I said before, I've created this this fictional company I creatively called Aidan's Copilot Company. And what I've done is I've had a connection with one of my team members, Randy, who's a member of the Pax8 team. We've had a Teams meeting, utilized Copilot to record that meeting. I'm going to go through and recap some of the action items from there and then see within my Copilot company, what are the actions I need to take to kind of give a few spoiler alerts. I'm going to be going through and pretending I'm the HR department. I need to create a new annual leave policy for my company. And what I want to do is then start to use this information from this Teams meeting to get that journey underway. So the reason I focus on Teams first is Teams is probably the first cab off the rank of where people do see value within their Copilot and really start to see that immediate impact. What you can see here is on Monday, I had a call with Randy. First of all, I do get this meeting recap. So Microsoft does a lot of automated recaps as part of the Copilot experience now. So you don't have to go in and do any additional fishing yourself. You will get this initial view where you can see meeting recap, some high-level notes about what we discussed. We discussed about Copilot, so I was talking shop for a little bit at the start before we started to get into the pretend discussions around different projects we were running and different things that we needed to do, like creating an annual leave policy that I'll need to follow up with the stakeholders as well. I get some other meeting notes as far as key decisions to be made, and also follow-up tasks. This is all generated by Copilot. I haven't pressed an additional button yet, so you can start to see some of the information is automatically being created. If I want to go through and view this recap myself and start to get a little bit more hands-on though, I get another level of information. I get to see who were the speakers on this call. So you can see Randy and I had a pretty big back and forth, both contributing pretty heavily to this meeting. I get the meeting notes here that have been automatically created. But if I want to go into Copilot and start to get a bit more creative with my requests, I can just click this Copilot tab up the top here as I've got a license assigned to my user. From here, you can see I was playing around with it a little bit before, but what I would recommend is once you come into Copilot, click on View Prompts down the bottom right-hand corner because it gives you quite a bit of guidance as you get up and running with the tool. And then Microsoft gives a couple of different options of the most popular prompts that it sees and that people are seeing the most value in. Really, the one that I utilize are these first two. Pretty much do this for every meeting that I'm part of these days. Firstly, recap the meeting. We'll see how Copilot is able to generate the response here. So hopefully giving a pretty good breakdown of what Randy and I discussed. So we discussed a new feature within Copilot, which we could probably cover off in a future session as well. And then we'll start to see, awesome, this is the bit that I needed to action upon today. So an annual leave policy. I requested Randy to do it, but I'll actually play the part of Randy today at Aidan's Copilot Company to create an annual leave policy utilizing some other M365 apps and Copilot. As we can start to see this, it is taking a little bit of time today, so it's a little bit slower. Hopefully that isn't across the board for Copilot for everyone's demoing interests, but we can see that this is generating through all of the things that we covered off. So a lot of things covered in that 6-minute meeting. I'll just try one more prompt to show you list any action items. You can then start to add additional parameters to these requests. Say, for example, list any action items in a table, list them with the owner assigned, list any urgent action items and prioritize these with dates. So this is where you can start to get a lot more imaginative in the outputs you want Copilot to do, but these are really productive ways to just get started. Awesome. So if we take the action that I've got an annual leave policy I need to create, what I really want to do now is find a government template to get started from to make sure that my annual leave benefits I pass to my workers are in line with government regulation. So in this case, I will go to the top right-hand corner, click on Copilot, and I'll click on Copilot for Web. As I have a paid version of Copilot, I do have one where I can search on the web, so using the internet as my source of truth, or I could switch it over to work, in which case Copilot would be looking at my internal documents, which is a really awesome feature to follow up on different meetings that have occurred, different workers that I collaborate with, and then different documents that I'm looking to find. It's a really good search engine for those internal documents.
Can I ask Aidan, just a quick question on that? If you are on web, will it search work and web or web only?
Just web only, it should do.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. Cool, so I will get my prompt in here. I think there might be some back settings. So if we do see some work responses come through, you can make sure it's in the settings. I may have it switched on for work, but the intents and purposes would be just for web. What I'll do is I'll bring across my prompt that I pre-baked earlier. And I'll just walk through with some of the ingredients that I was mentioning before to hopefully show you how I'm looking to drive it. So I'm an HR manager based in Victoria, Australia, which is a geographic importance for this prompt to make sure I get the right regulations. Please use the internet to find a government document template, say that fast 10 times, for me to help build an employee leave policy. So pretty simple, but all of the ingredients are in there to hopefully get the output that I'm looking to create here. Fantastic. And so quick as a flash, we've got two options here. Both of them look pretty good. If we're looking for government regulations, we've got the Business Victoria website, which just from being a local, I'm aware of like it being a safe website to use. And then the Fair Work Ombudsman, which would also be a good place to start with. However, I'll go to this Business Victoria website first. Hopefully that opens up pretty quickly. And then what we have here is we've got the business website where we can go through and download this manual template. I'll open it up quickly just so you can go to see how some of, like, a great template, there's a lot of information in here, but you can see that we're actually starting with 67 pages of a government template, a whole bunch of manual instructions for those who don't have Copilot who need to use this. But then it gets down to things like, where am I looking? I think annual leave policies don't even come in until page 44. So a lot of information that we'd have to read through, scour through to make sure we get the right accurate information if we were doing things manually. So let's see if we can find a better solution through Copilot. So pretend that I've saved that in the background. I'll go across to my M365 app. I'll click on Create, and then I'll open up a Word document. One of the fun things about doing these demos a few times is that every time I come in, sometimes the UI changes. The world of Copilot changes very quickly as they get more and more data points and more features rolled out. So generally, we do see that Microsoft provides more options on how to get started within the app experience as well. So again, assisting with that adoption curve as well. So I'll just go get my next prompt and I'll just walk you through that as well. So what do I want to draft with Copilot today? So I'll just put that Y in there. So I'm an experienced HR manager at a company called Aiden's Copilot Company. Using this file as a reference, please write an employee leave policy. The most important thing I need to do here is then embed that document that I downloaded in the background. So what I'll do is I'll just click a / or type a / rather. I tagged it as a demo 1, HR policies and procedures manual template. So it's easy for me to find for the purposes of today's call. Can I please write an employee leave policy? If I click on the end here, what may occur is that what is happening now is Copilot's got more data that it's able to utilize to suggest how to augment our prompts to make them more effective and really make them as rich as possible when you're creating that first initial draft. So just by me pressing space at the end of my sentence, Copilot has made some recommendations. So write an employee leave policy that includes types of leave, application process, approval criteria, and emphasizes fairness and clarity. So they're the values that we hold here at the Copilot company as well. I'll click on Tab, or hit on Tab, and then now all of a sudden, Microsoft has helped us build a much richer prompt. It keeps on adding some more additional things in here. I might go for ensure a tone is professional, informative, and suitable for a diverse workforce. That sounds good to me. I'll just hit Tab again. That's probably the last of the recommendations. Well, I can see there's a few more in there, but in the interest of time, we could review these later, but I'll just generate this with that richer prompt that Microsoft has helped me generate. So as we remember, we started with a 67-page manual template. And so now we've got Copilot scouring through that initial document with that prompt in mind to see where we're ending up to create this employee leave policy. As we can see, pretty clearly labeled. I do like the formatting that Microsoft Copilot uses within Word. It's pretty straightforward. It uses a lot of subheadings. You're able to then go through and adjust that, make sure it's in dot points that you like. You can change things into tables using Copilot as well. But from the high level, we can see we've got our employee leave policy. It's tagged to Aiden's Copilot company. You can see the company name is mentioned a few times throughout the text as well, so it is personalized. But most importantly, let's have a look at the types of leave that are available to our workers. 4 weeks annual leave, 10 days sick leave. That sounds pretty in line to government policy as far as I'm aware. We've got compassionate leave, parental leave in there as well, which we need to make sure aligns to the benefits we want to offer. And then we go through and we've got an example application process, which wasn't part of that initial template. And then we can also see some of the approval criteria, which we can review and make sure that that is fair to how we want to work with our workers. We can also see that the policy reflects the company's commitment to supporting employees' diverse needs. So it goes to show how we do adjust that initial prompt, can adjust the initial output as well. So the richer that you make that prompt, the more you use those ingredients, the more we're going to get to the draft that we want the first time. So if we go through and we keep this draft, that looks pretty good. That's at least a really good sort of 80, 85% to get started. But if we think about what the next step we want to do as part of this process, let's take this draft, let's pretend that we've got it approved through our leadership team. It's ready to roll. We want to create a presentation to make sure that we can present this back to the workforce and they're aware of the benefits that we've got available to them. So where do presentations take us? They take us to our trusty old mate over at PowerPoint. So I'll go back to create in Microsoft 365. I'll click on PowerPoint presentation. And what I want to show today is that we're able to actually utilize templates to create sort of appropriately branded or corporate presentations from the first instance. We don't have to create Copilot, just white background, black text on top. That will look a little bit plain. We're able to actually utilize templates to get started. So let's click on File, click on New, and then we can go for Browse Templates. What you can actually do is you can create a branded template for your company. So put up your own branding, imagery, typefaces, those sort of things, and you can upload it in there. So we do have a Pax8 one. Unfortunately, we're still optimizing it for Copilot because it needs to be sort of like 4 or 5 slides. We've got one that's meant for manual use, so not appropriate for today's purposes, but Microsoft 365 does have some pretty good templates that we can utilize to showcase this feature as well. If we look at some of the templates available, I do like the look of this minimalist sort of geometric shape, black background one. We hover over this, click Create, and then we can get started with Copilot in PowerPoint, utilizing that template in the back. What I might do is might use Copilot up in the top right-hand corner. You could use it from here as well. I usually find that I just use this top right-hand one to just train that behavior for myself. And then we should see that pane pop up in 1 second. Awesome. So what we have is we have some options to work with the presentation as it exists. As it's a template, it's not too meaningful to work with now. But what I'll do is I'll bring across my my trusty prompt from before and make sure we can get started here. So really, if we think about the summary or the draft that we created earlier, I just want to create a presentation using this file as a reference and to please ensure that we use images where appropriate as well. So as again, I just want to connect in that file that we're using previously. I saved it in as, sorry, I'll just double check, demo HR, demo output. Sorry, I do have a few demo files that I work through to try and convey these ones. So this is just literally that Word file that I produced earlier, just saved in the background. So please use create a presentation using this file as a reference. Please use images where appropriate as well. Pretty simple format because we've done the heavy lifting beforehand. We've got the slides that we want to work through. Let's click on Generate and let Copilot within PowerPoint do its thing. It'll then scour through that Word document we saved. Hopefully it starts to listen to us. It has said, are you happy for me to override these slides, which is a great level of permissions because we don't want Copilot doing too much without a license. But we just say, yes, please, we do want to override those slides and let it to get started. So one of the things I really like about the PowerPoint experience is it goes through your document. It starts to outline where it's getting that information from. You can start to get some clues into say, for example, we could probably limit the parameters a little bit because this is a lot of slides to get through, even though it's a very important thing to get our workers across, obviously. But it has started to generate the presentation based on these subheadings, and then it's going to start generating the slides and speaker notes. So it'll just be one moment. We'll see how well it's done from these. Awesome. We'll give a bit more leeway to the PowerPoint experience. It is pretty fast usually, but it has to work through text, imagery, colors, all sorts of things. So it can take a little bit longer than the other apps to get started. But you can start to see, here we go. We've got our first output. So let's go through and review. So we've got our employee leave policies at the HR company with this nice templated background. We can start to go through. There's an agenda slide. So pretty neat. We might want to change the size of the fonts or text, obviously, to make it a bit easier to read and take a bit of that white space. But we're starting to get a bit into the design preferences versus a well-structured slide. So we can start to see we've got our intro, we've got our application and entitlements, we've got all of the things planned leave approval. Most of the subheadings that we were able to see on the previous document has started to be covered off. So we could refine our prompt to say, please create a 5-slide presentation or put some more parameters to make it a bit more user-friendly from the get-go. However, what I want to show you now is just, we've got a pretty good demo. Maybe want to reduce it down in size, but there are a few ways to make sure the slides have that look and feel that you want without needing to do heavy lifting, moving boxes around, doing all of that PowerPoint stuff where I end up just breaking the slides if I'm doing it myself. If we go to the top right-hand corner, we also have Designer as part of the PowerPoint experience, which utilizes a lot of the same AI functions as the greater Microsoft family. And it goes through and you can utilize Designer to get different options on how those slides look and feel. So if we want to change the color of the background, we've got a few different options here. They are a little bit same today. We do usually get a few different options. And my internet is starting to slow down a little bit. So I'll just be one moment, see if we can get that one here. But for all intents and purposes, you can utilize the designer feature. I'll see if I can change to a different slide, click on designer and just see if I can sort of showcase that feature a little bit more, but it might be something to move on. Okay, cool. So we can see from this slide within designer, we can see there's a few options here on the right-hand side where we can start to change how that format looks, really change how the structure is in general, change it to squares, change it to lines. There's a few different options out there to get you started. So that's a really good option to help with the design and the look and feel of those slides. But you can see it has saved us a lot of time regardless. So I'll just close that one out. But think about the next step of what we want to do in a process. We've created a draft. I do realize we've only got 5 minutes left on the clock, so I'll power through. What I might do is we can go through and say, we've gone through, we've created our employee leave policy, we've gone through, we've created our presentation, we've got some feedback from the department, we've got a few pieces of data from the HR department we want to work through. So we can go over to Excel and I can show you a bit of a table that our employees would be working through just to try and showcase the Copilot experience through Excel as well. I'll just refresh this slide also. As I am using through the web experience, I think if the window's open too long, it will time out. But I just wanted to show everyone, though I do have a couple of example Excel tables that we can work through from the department. So we've got our employee satisfaction forms that we filled out as part of that presentation. I've got full names, I've got employee IDs, satisfaction level, departments, and salary bands. If you're like me, probably there's been a few times in your career where you've had to get a column of full names and last names, but you need to upload it into a CRM or similar, where you have to put it in as first name and last name as a separate band. You need to try and find out what that Excel formula is. You might have to do that, might have to buy a cup of tea for someone in finance to help you with that formula, or you might have to do what I usually do, which is just copy and paste it manually and not telling anyone how much time you spent on that task. Well, luckily, Copilot should hopefully help us out with this task. I'll just be one moment. I'll go home and then Copilot in the top right-hand corner, and we can get started with Excel in Copilot. One of the benefits of the large language model is it works within the app. It tries to make sure that it's got visibility to all of the features within the app as well, which you may not even know, because Excel is a massively powerful tool, but I only scratched the surface on some of these features. So let's have a look into some prompts that we can put through. So if I want to split that full name into first name and last name, just simply asking Copilot, can you please split full name into first name and last name? Let's hit go and let's see what Copilot's able to do, and hopefully we can get the right response this afternoon. So we can start to see that the text is starting to highlight, or the table's starting to highlight. Copilot's doing some work in the background, and we can start to see that we're starting to get some output. One of the things that I really like about the Copilot experience is that, first of all, it shows you that it's understood the prompt. It starts to break it down into how it's creating that first name and last name box. It's also giving you the formula. So if you need to know the bit of the manuals of how it's doing in the background, you can use that for next time. But most importantly, it shows you the output of what it's calculated. So you can then insert it as new columns without needing to do anything. But you can see that it is going to be the right response before you put it in and change your spreadsheet. Let's go through and click those insert columns. And so great, we've been able to see Rayner Park, now 2 different columns, Daxton Mays as the same result as well. So you can start to think about it, really brings the imagination to the forefront of how can we utilize this large language model for really tedious tasks in massive spreadsheets to reduce down the time to A, either educating on how to do it, but most importantly, B, on the execution of that task as well. So you can start to see it really stacks together on how we're able to do this. I'll just delete these two. So hopefully that shows a bit of the admin stuff of how you can utilize Excel and Copilot, because this is actually a huge area of development for Microsoft. But then let's try and see if we can get some data insights as well. I'm not very good at creating tables when it comes to Excel. So let's see if we can just give it a request to show some data insights to see if it's able to help us visualize or gain some insights on the spreadsheet that we have in front of us as well. Cool. So we have a similar story here that we've got. It's showing us what the output is starting to look like before we put it into the table. So reducing that time to understanding how we're able to utilize it. You can see we've got satisfaction level by department, but let's take a closer look. Let's add it to a new sheet just to get started. Cool. So we've got a pivot table, which is showing the departments by the average satisfaction level, which is probably some really good insights for the HR management to have here at Aidan's Copilot company. But then numbers all look the same to me, so it's good to have a visualization of that as well. So I've got a nice bar chart to see that on a scale. There's probably a bit of work for me to do at the company though as well, because I can see the management department are particularly satisfied in their role, However, when we get to the engine room of the company through accounting, product management, and support, things aren't looking too crash hot. So what this would do is we take the full journey of the exercise we've done today. We've created what we thought were employee benefits, done a presentation to the team, recapped the meetings of what we wanted to get the information from in the first place, and then we've analysed the data and found out that there is some more work to do in particular areas of the business. So I see we've just gone straight on 1 o'clock. That is the end of the quick demo that I want to have. Hopefully it starts off a series of how you can start to find benefits within Copilot. I'm happy to stay around for a few more minutes to answer any questions, but hopefully that gives you a bit of a taste into what that Copilot experience looks like across the board, with also some considerations if you're looking to immersify yourself in the Copilot ecosystem from here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Aidan. That was an absolutely great presentation for me. I learned a lot. I hope you all did. I do have a question here that came through earlier in the session from Mary, just around the difference between can you please provide more information around the free version and the version that comes with your organisation 365 account, particularly as it pertains to confidentiality?
Yeah, sure. So for the free version of Copilot for M365, Microsoft has a whole bunch of AI commitments. And some of those commitments are that they're not going to be using your prompts to train the models, which isn't something that is provided by other free versions of large language models, such as ChatGPT. Whilst ChatGPT does have some guarantees on that it doesn't share your information outside of the organization, it does mean that if you do put any personally identifiable information into that engine, it's stored outside of where you've been hosting it yourself. So that just means that it'll be on the open AI data end. So it is a potential leak from their end, which we have seen a few leaks. Particularly, there was a big case for Samsung last year. But from the free version of Copilot from Microsoft 365, all of the information you put into those prompts doesn't leave your service boundary. It just extracts the information it needs to compute and put that request through. And also now there is the compute capacity for all of these requests to happen in country. So before, I think Australia was split across APAC, but now there's a sufficient compute for Copilot requests for all of those requests to happen within Australia as well, to align to a lot of the geographical compliance requirements really led out of Europe, but it has come through to Australia now as well. For the paid version, so just the second half of the question, I think, was just around the paid version of Copilot for Microsoft 365. It's really, there's a paid license per user, and that's the purpose to go through those examples like I did today. It's a personalized experience where you're able to interact through Copilot into your apps and into your data, because if you have the free version, it's not able to work within the applications and not able to work directly embedded into your data, such as your meetings, your Teams meetings, Teams messages, emails or files on your SharePoint or OneDrive. So it's kind of the paid version is just the extension of that experience, whereas if you have the free version, you can do some of that, but it does require some manual work to get that data into that engine to get the benefits.
Thank you, Aidan. That's really helpful. Another question that I had really for myself is probably around Outlook. We didn't get a chance to touch on that today, but what are some of the efficiencies or really great uses of Copilot that you've seen in Outlook?
So within Outlook, some of the benefits I can actually, if I've got a couple of minutes, I can probably go through and just give a bit of a showcase. Actually, I don't have those ones set up, so maybe we'll set up a follow-up session to run through that. But some of the applications within Outlook, the low-hanging fruit is really the creation of drafts and the summarization of your emails and prioritizing your inbox. So really leaning into that heavy text usage of Copilot within there. So we can draft up emails. You can also start to use email coaching within Outlook as well, where you can start to, Microsoft analyzes sentiment analysis of what they're seeing of sort of well-written corporate emails, or aligning to different prompts around write a professional email, write a casual email, those sort of things. So you can start to use that coaching feature there. The usual joke is that people write angry emails and they use the coaching function to make it more professional, but they can get the feelings out in the page much faster. So it can save that time for the intent, but then use coaching to then refine it and make it a bit more appropriate for that work setting. You can start to utilize within the new version of Outlook. So a lot of them do align to the new version of Outlook versus Classic, but it gets into the functionality and operations of Outlook as well. So you can start to put in requests, say, please find a 30-minute time that Anna and Damien are available in the next 2 weeks, and lock in that meeting. So it'll automatically go through everyone's calendar and make that availability. It'll give you a couple of options and say, Tuesday, 10 a.m., both of you are free. Do you want to lock that in? Bang. So that's a great operational example. You can also use it to turn on your Outlook messages as well if you're out of office. So I've done it before, saying I'm taking Christmas leave from Christmas Eve through to the 1st of January. please put in a funny message saying I'm out of the office and I'm having a great time on holidays. So that's kind of another way that you can utilize it. So it's getting outside of that traditional sort of text usage into the operational function of how it can push the app for features that you would need to do manually and absorb probably a lot of time because you don't do it a lot.
I love that. I might get you back for that demo in more detail another day because that sounds very worthwhile. We have 2 questions that have come through, and please, if you're still on the call, we'll hang around. If you've got some questions, chuck them in the chat. Otherwise, we will be circulating. We appreciate your time today already. We will be circulating the recording so that you can get the absolute most out of it. And if you need a Copilot license, please hit us up. Let us know. We can help you out with that. I have a question here from Monique around, will Copilot be accessible from the desktop versions of Word, PowerPoint, or does it need to be in the browser?
Yes, it's available in all versions of the apps. The reason that I use the web version, it's easier for me to have all my tabs open to sort of demo across there sort of quickly on a call. But B, Microsoft's development cycle is first cab off the rank is the browser versions. So it just means that the most up-to-date version of Copilot is in the browser. Because if you think about it, they roll out their software updates, but it then takes an additional step of updates to get through to the desktop version, depending on when your IT department or depending when your internal users update those versions or reset their laptops for those apps to refresh. So you might see that Teams is asking you to sort of reset every couple of days or every week or so. That's because it's trying to iterate all of the changes that are being integrated, particularly around Copilot. So that is so you can use it through all avenues. I just use it through the browser just for simplicity and for the most up-to-date version, so I can hopefully showcase exactly what's fresh in Copilot.
Love that. And there's a very good reason that IT departments do restart your machines on a regular basis.
Yes, of course.
There's a great question from Lee here. Thanks for joining us, Lee. How can you change the Copilot language output to utilize Australian English? Although language settings are configured in our tenant Office PC, the output is often American English.
So I think that is that's on the roadmap to localize. So I do have that experience as well, where it is in American English. The approach that I'd have in the short term would be that you can put that request into your prompts. So I was actually having a chat to a colleague yesterday who was based in New Zealand, and I was saying, please utilize New Zealand English for all intents and purposes, pretty similar to Australian way of speaking. But it is, by adding that into the prompt, it was able to overcome the S's for Z's conundrum, which we do have to go through and change manually otherwise. So I would say that whilst we do have it overall as an ongoing issue of the American side of things in the language preferences, it will be updated in the future. But in the meantime, just add it to your prompts and it should improve things for you.
Awesome. Thank you. We've got a question here from Jade. Does it allow you to set up the system? Oh, I just answered that one. Sorry. I need to eat my lunch, I can tell. How much access do users have to internal documents through Copilot? For example, searching emails and documents that may contain sensitive information. Very good question from Haley.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Haley. So the answer is they have exactly the same access that they have today. So one of the considerations for Copilot is it doesn't create any new threat vectors or new compliance issues internally. However, it can really exacerbate them if you don't have the right policies and governance in place. So really, if you had an eager beaver who was clicking around all the folders back in the old day, looking at the financial records, looking at HR records, if they had access, they'd be able to see documentation that they probably shouldn't have access to. Copilot, it makes that function a little bit easier, where you can say, please find any files associated to probably a senior leader that contains financial information. So that is a huge use case to connect with Anna and the team around how you can make sure things like sensitivity labels are configured, things like right identity, right access are configured as well. A lot of the Microsoft 365 Premium stack and above is built around maintaining a solid platform to protect against scenarios such as this, but it really makes sure that you can ring fence things like SharePoint sites. So you only have access to the right SharePoint sites, you only have access to the right labeled documentation. There's ways to manually set up that sensitivity label assignment, but there's also products available to automatically do that. So you can set parameters to make sure that that is rolled out automatically. So if it detects things like a credit card number, it detects things like financial statements, it just makes sure that different users aren't able to access that automatically. But it is a very big consideration if you are looking for a large rollout of Copilot.
Absolutely. And that's we've got a great session on kind of the shadow IT and role-based access controls that we can share as well at some point to help people understand, I guess, some of those walls and permissions and the importance of them. I don't have any more questions here. I guess it would be a great time to wrap it up, but I'd love just for you to leave us with, Aidan. If I don't have Copilot today, I don't have a license, I'm looking at the $500, $600 license of the business and going, is it worth it? I'd love to hear what you've seen in the market and what kind of anecdotal efficiency and benefit you've actually seen the product bring, because you've seen across multiple businesses, obviously, in a very short period of time. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so like I totally understand from a tech perspective, $500, $600 is a pretty big outlay within itself. But if you think about the average Australian salary of what most people are paid, we're a pretty high paid nation on the whole. If you think about how many minutes a day over 12 months that it takes to regain $500 for your worker, I really start to think about how many Teams meetings you have a day. If you've got 3 or 4 Teams meetings a day and you're taking notes manually, or you're forgetting things because you're participating in meetings at the same time you're writing notes, or you need to step out and do multiple things, that's where Copilot can make a huge benefit around not only the productivity, but the time saving on to hit that productivity as well. So that's where we start to see some really immediate benefit. If you're in really heavily text-based roles, so some of the creative departments like marketing or within sales, the way that you can summarize emails, summarize them and consolidate information across emails, Teams messages to then communicate onto your manager or another party to bring them up to speed faster. Just think about how many minutes or how many hours that would probably save as well. Translate that to a dollar figure and you can see it starts to add up really quickly. But my favorite one, which is by no means the flashiest use of Copilot, is I work with teams across from New Zealand all the way to the States, all the way around the globe, basically. So people might be on annual leave. I need to find presentations or documents that they've been working on. I can use Copilot to tag their name, tag the subject that I've been talking to them about, and roughly the time period I was working with them on, just in plain English. And it brings back 3 or 4 options of what I've been working on. And that's actually saved me weeks at a time if someone has been on annual leave or if they're celebrating a different holiday that we don't celebrate here in Australia. So that's a way that it's probably paid for itself in a single action, just to make sure I can get those resources utilized as quickly as possible.
And it is the simple things, right? It's the things we do every day that are going to make the biggest impact, which is why we've tried to keep today's session as practical and as use case as possible. There's one more question from Justin that's just come through. I could probably answer that one on the sign up, on the wrap up. But in terms of, is Copilot included in the Premium Business 365 license? No, it's not. It is an additional license. It's a Copilot license. It's assigned to a user. So there's one per user and it is an annual commit upfront. So it is one of those things that you don't enter into flippantly. But if you're willing to actually leverage the tool, you'll see the benefits of that tenfold, as we've heard today. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Aidan, so much for taking the time out of your day for sharing your knowledge with us. And we will, as I said, be sending around the recording. Please share it with your teams. I think as many people that can know about how to leverage tools like this, the better. So it's been a real joy to see so many of you here. We are going to talk or pencil in that Outlook session. I think it will be well worth it. Thank you. I see that. And we'll let you know when that one's coming up. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for your time.
Cheers.